So today's webinar is going to be on end-user design or localization. So I stayed up last night so I could figure out how to do this, and it turns out that it's super easy. And so I'm going to go through the process of actually localizing the end-user report designer, show you how to do that, and maybe if you want to change just one thing on the end-user report designer, I'll show you how to do that. But I'll take questions after that. If there are no questions, some of the questions that I've been getting lately on localization is how to localize, for example, dates when you show them on your reports. I'm going to show you how to do that if there are no questions. But again, I'm willing to take questions from anybody, either here on the showroom floor at Dev Connections or from you guys out there on the interwebs land. So if there's any questions, Amanda, at any time, feel free to interrupt my babblings and ask the good questions. Are we okay with that, Amanda?
We are.
I believe she said yes. So we're going to get started. Okay. Okay, so today we're going to talk about end-user designer localization. So let me hit this. There's really only 5 bullet points that I'm going to go through. The first one is the easy way. There is an easy way to localize the end-user report designer. Then there's step number 2, the easy way but with extra effort way to localize the end-user report designer using localizers. The 4th way is the super custom way. Now this way I'm not going to spend a lot of time on, but I will tell you how to do it and how we think you should sort of send these files over to us so we can rebuild the DLLs for you. And the last, I might get into how to fix problems, but really it's really simple to do. In fact, I had never done it before, and it took me a couple seconds to get up to speed. So let me go over to this slide here and talk about the easy way. So when looking at your directory of where your app is, notice that wherever your exe lives, all we need you to do is place special DLLs inside of the culture-specific folder. Now let me show you where you can get those. So let me go over to our website here, and I'm going to show you just from scratch how to get to that. So I'm going to go documentation.devexpress.com. We're going to go down to extra reports because we love our reports. I'm going to go down to localization here, and I'm going to click on it, and you're going to see some documentation on how to localize stuff. We're going to do the satellite resource assemblies. Now, when you go over here, notice that it's going to tell you to go to the collection of localized DevExpress assemblies. You can download them all right here. Notice that some of them are fully translated and some of them are not. An example might be in Finnish. Some of the things have been localized, but others haven't. If you find a string and you're from Finland that you feel should be better, send us an email and we'll totally fix this in our satellite assemblies. Okay, so my name is Juarez, or if you want to say it correctly, Juarez. This is for Mark Miller, who's standing there, because he says it, he calls, yeah. So if you want to get the Spanish ones, go to DEXperience 10.2. And if you go to this, you can download all of the satellite assemblies that contain the resources to change over your language, okay? So I've already downloaded them. I have them right here on my desktop over to the left, and I extracted them to this folder called the stuff. Okay, so let me explain what's in here, okay? So under devexpress.dll is where all the compiled assemblies, satellite assemblies live. So for example, for us, we're going to go into Spanish, so let's find ES. Oh, I think I moved it out already. That stinks. So let's go to another one. Let's go to French. And notice that we have all of our resource assemblies already built in. So it looks like I'm going to translate over to French, if that's okay. And what I'm going to do is I am going to start a new project from scratch, and we are going to build that out. So let me go here. I have a project already open, but I'm just going to say new project. And I'm going to use Windows Forms, although it's the same pretty much for all the other ones. And I'm going to go to Windows Forms Application, and I'm going to call it EUD Localized. All right. So it's going to open a new project. Here is the form that we're going to use. I'm going to change this because I'm so OCD. I need to change these things to something useful. All right, main.cs. Let me go over here and say EUD localized. And then I'm going to do something that probably you don't do. If you use Windows Forms, one of the things that's important is that if you want to use our theming stuff, let me drag a button over there so I get the right assemblies. Very good. So there's a button. If you want to use, in Windows Form, it's probably our most mature product. If you want to use the cool Windows Form, let me show you a little secret tip that you should use when using Windows Form. You can go over here and inherit from extra form, and the theming automatically comes along with it. So when you look over at this pretty form, it should look a little bit better. So, all right, so I'm going to make this button big. I'm going to anchor the button here real quick. And I'm going to spend a minute, let me tell you what I'm doing. I'm going to spend a minute actually building a report from scratch because everyone likes to do that. So let me go over here to alphabetical order. That way I can get the right thing. And I'm going to anchor this button everywhere. I'm going to get this button right here, and I'm going to change its name to button run. How about button do? And then the text I'm going to set to, let me go over here, to do. All right. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to build a report, right? Because we want to have a report that we can look at in the End User Report Designer, and we also want to have a report that we can look at in the preview. So let me show you how to build a report. I'm going to spend a couple, probably 2-3 minutes building a report, just to show you how easy it is. I'm going to add a folder here, new folder, and I'm going to call it data. And I'm going to add an existing database that I already have, right? Over here to my left, I have this shortcut to our demo projects, right? In there, we have our databases. So let me go to Components, Data, and let me do star.mdb. And notice that we have this Northwind thing right here. So I'm going to hit Add. Okay. When I add this, it's going to ask if I want to create a data set. I'm going to go ahead and hit Yes. I am going to get all of the tables and hit Finish. Okay. So this is actually going to build a data set for us, as you probably all know. And it's going to set up the way we want it. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to build a report. So I'm going to say Add, New Folder, and I'm going to say Reports. The reason why I like separate folders is because it keeps the functionality between each of the things separate so that the assemblies, when they're named, the namespaces are named nicely. So I'm going to add a new item, and the new item is going to be a report. So let me go to Reporting. Here, I'm going to go to Extra Report Class, and I'm going to call it Our Report. Right? When I do that, notice that the designer is going to come up. Give it a second. It's going to add all the assemblies that are required by default, and then it's going to load up the designer, which we all know and love. When I first go here, notice that there's nothing in the field list because there's nothing to choose from. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick the data source to be this data set. Okay? And let's see. Let's find one that has a date. So we're going to do an employees report, right? Let's see. Hopefully there's a picture in there. Do they have pictures? Yes, there's a photo. Perfect. We're going to do an employees report. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the data member to employees, right? Notice that I need to change to employees data adapter. We're not going to need this data adapter anymore. I'm going to go ahead and bring over a first name, a last name, and a hire date, right? So I'm going to go ahead and preview. Take a look. Pretty simple. Let me make this a little bit bigger because it looks like it's not fitting. This I'm going to move over like so. This I'm going to make a little bit bigger as well. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this guy up. Preview again. So this is kind of how I like to work with reports. I like to go through and change things and make it look a little bit better. For some reason, I am not a fan of Times New Roman. I do not know why, so I'm going to go ahead and bring this up. And notice when it comes to styling, the way styling works is that the parent element will send all of its styles down to its child elements. So this entire report, if I set a font for it, will automatically force its attribute of font down all the way to the bottom. So let me do that right now. So let me go to this, and I'm going to change it to Trebuchet MS. Go to 14, hit OK. Oh, that looks a little too big. I'm going to change that a little real quick. Go down to 12, hit OK. Now when I hit preview, look how lovely that is, although it's kind of spilling over. So I'm going to move this over one more time. Change the hire date here, like so. And then I'm going to add a picture so that we can see what they look like. So let me do this instead. Move this over, like so, and we're going to add their photo right over here. Notice that the system is smart enough to know that the bits we're bringing over actually belong to a picture. So put that right there. Now let's take a look and see what that looks like. There you go. So here is a report with all of the employees, just really nice, really fast. I'm going to move this down a little bit so that there is some space in between them. And now when I hit preview, notice that this is a pretty good report, pretty easy. We could probably put some more stuff on the side, but I'm going to leave it. I'm going to leave it at that. Okay. So this report literally took like a minute or two to build. Right. I dragged stuff on. Things look nice. There's probably more things that I can do to make it look nice, but I'm going to leave it like that because, again, the focus today is how to localize the tools we give you. Okay, so let me go over back to the designer. Let me go to the main, and let me show you how to instantiate the report. You guys probably all know how to do this. So our report equals new report, our report. We're going to say report.createDocument, right? And I'm going to say report.show preview dialog. And that's it. We hit F5, run this guy, and hit do. There you go. So here is the report all built out, all nice and happy. You can, as you know, you can save all this stuff. You can change this. You can email stuff. You can pan, zoom, whatever you want to do with our reports. Real simple, real nice, real friendly. I think it's nice. So let's go ahead and open up the end user report designer, which is where we want to go. So I'm going to hit stop here, and instead I'm going to say show designer dialog. Right. When I do that, there's obviously you guys know that there is going to be this special tool. Did I click it? I think I did. Yes, I did. There is going to be a special tool that comes up that allows your end users to actually edit the reports. Right. And that's one of the benefits of choosing DevExpress is that you can use our end user report designer, send this out to your folks, and they can change their reports however they wish, and they can serialize back these reports anywhere. Now, here is the problem we are trying to solve. Notice first that these things are all in English, but say I'm French, and I want to make sure that everything is en français. That's what we're talking about here. I want to spend a couple of minutes building a report so you can see that everything that I'm doing is indeed from scratch. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do over here is I'm going to close this all up, and I'm going to show all the files. In the bin directory, because you recall, let me load this slide up real quick, that your particular project lives in a particular directory, right? Inside of that directory, if we want things to be localized to French, we have to drop the FR folder in that directory. Okay, so let me do that right now. Okay, so let me open this folder. I'm going to go down here, open folder in Windows Explorer. There's everything that you would expect. There is the data, including the Northwind database that we set up. There is the actual program. Okay, so now I'm going to go to the desktop. And I'm going to go to the stuff, and I'm going to go to DevExpress DLL. I'm going to go to FR, and I am literally going to just move it over. There it is. So now let's run it and see what happens. So when I run it, the first thing you're going to expect is, hey, the end user report designer needs to show up in oh, wow, it's still in English. Here is the thing, though. When you are actually running your program, the current thread that is running has the UI culture set by default. Turns out that my current thread's UI culture is in English. And so what we want to do is we want to change that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what's going on and how to set this up. Okay. Okay. So let me go over to the program. And I'm going to go over here and say, hey, guess what? This thread is running in French. So I'm going to say thread, get the application, dot current thread, dot. And here is where the UI culture can be set up, right? We're going to say new culture info. And we're going to say the culture is FR for French. Okay, let me take out this stuff. Let me put this on the next line so you can see what is going on. Now, this thread, the current UI thread, is running in French, and so what it should do is the system should automatically reach out, get the resource assemblies, and do everything in French. So I'm going to hit do. And crossing our fingers, the end user report designer is indeed in French. You see that? Everything now is running in French. Now, this, I think, is the biggest confusion. If you're trying to localize your stuff and it's not, for some reason, not taking the satellite assemblies, the one thing you need to worry about is, well, is the current user's program, is it running under the French UI culture? So the thing to check, if you ever want to do that, is literally you just go to the current thread that's running and you see what the current UI culture is. That will tell you how this thing is running. Okay, so that's the important part. Okay, so let's go back to the program, and let's just say, for example, that I don't know. Let me show you the other one real quick, because that's the one I set up. But this is the designer dialog. I'm going to show the ribbon designer dialog, right? Just so you can see that both work. So let me hit do. And let's let the ribbon report designer load up here. There it is. Notice that this also is in French. So either one. So we're going to stay with the ribbon designer, the ribbon end user designer, and I'm going to change a button, right? Say, for example, that you don't like the way one button was translated, right? Now, here's the deal with what I'm going to show you next. The assumption, if you use localizer classes, which is what I'm going to show you, is that you want this to always be in a specific language. Now, I discourage that because if you have the satellite assemblies, you saw how I just threw it all in and everything just worked. If someone is running their Windows operating system in French, your stuff will just work, right? If you use localizers, you are forcing the UI to be a different language. So we're going to change this particular button from enregistrer to something else. Okay, so let me go and show you how to do that. So the way to do that is to use something called the report localizer. All right, there it is. I'm going to say .active equals new, and we're going to say EUD localizer. Right? So notice that this object doesn't exist. That's okay. We'll let CodeRush do it for us. And I'm going to inherit from report localizer, right? And we don't need this, right? So it just takes it out. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to override a method to get the localized string, right? Let's put this in its own class. I'm sorry, in its own file. There we go. And now I'm going to come here and look at this, right? So I'm going to say if ID equals, and notice that this has some report strings. So let's see. Let's do the save all caption, right? Equals this, return, right? I don't know another way to save, and let me just say français. I don't know what else to say, right? Otherwise, return base. Now you're going to see something that you're going to think is a little silly, but I'm going to explain why it does that. So I'm going to do a numbers lock 241. No. Just so you can see the little cedille there, which is French. So I'm going to run this, and you're going to see what happens. Okay? So I'm going to hit do. And you're going to notice something funky is going to happen, but I'll show you how to overcome it. Uh-oh. Right? Notice that the save all button is indeed what we wanted it to be. What happened to the other ones? Well, they're in English. The reason why is because the default localizer, as you would expect, is English. So let's be a little bit more clever and see if we can't get just that one string to change. So let me go over to main.cs, and let me pass in now something else. I'm going to say report localizer dot create default localizer. And what that does is that creates the default localizer for your particular report. So we're going to declare the constructor, and we're going to call it our localizer. Right? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Code Rush here to declare a field with an initializer, and then I'm going to go back over here and be done. Now, instead of saying base, right, we're going to say localizer, get localized string. Now, what we've done is really simple. We've allowed the UI thread in the main class to define the localizer that is the one we want, the default localizer, and then what we're doing is we're modifying the default localizer by using inheritance. So now the save all caption should be français. Everything else should be what we've already set up. So let's hit run. Let me hit do. And as we wait while it loads up, we see that everything is back to normal, and the only one that's changed is that one. So here is the key with this. The key with the localizer is that, for example, if your current UI culture is in Spanish, everything will show up in Spanish using this methodology except for that one button. And if that's what you want to do, that's fine. However, I would suggest to use the localized assemblies that we provide, the satellite assemblies. Now, let's go back and let's close this down. And let's talk about some questions. Any questions, Amanda, so far?
No questions so far.
Hey!
Someone likes your background, which I'm assuming is that black.
Oh, thanks. Oh, I thought maybe someone liked my speaking voice, but it's just my background, huh? Oh, jeez.
Yeah, your computer.
Well, I got a laugh out of Amanda, so that's always good. Okay, now, let's go on to the next thing, which I think is a little bit harder, and I am going to suggest you do not do this, but if you want to, you are more than welcome to. Notice that in the folder, the stuff, we have the assemblies that we want, right, already set up and built. Now, here you can see our solutions. You can literally download the localized versions of our stuff if you want. So if we go to reports, you can go to, we were just in French, so let's go to French, and you can hit whatever document type, or whatever is your favorite thing to look at. Here's the regex. You can literally go through and find all of these things and change them. For example, the appearance catalog, or the catalog data, or the layout, or behavior. Notice that these are all set up directly in the regex file. So, if you feel that any of our satellite assemblies are not working for you, and you would like them to be different, feel free to download it. And I showed you where. I'll make sure in the notes to add the URL. Download them, change them. Now, you can recompile them yourself, but you will need our strong key, which we really don't like giving out. But the best thing to do is to take this, change it to how you want it, let us recompile our DLLs, and send them back to you so that you can have these things localized in whatever way you want. Now, obviously, you know, as you go through this, one of the things that I ran into is I expected all the, like, one regex file to have everything with the end user report designer. So, for example, I expected this to have everything having to do with end user report designer in there. No, I've noticed that that's not the smart thing to do. And the developer spoke to me last night and said, Seth, no, these strings are across a bunch of localized files. For example, the term save, how many times are you going to use the word save in your application? So in order to change that or localize that, you save, you change that in one regex file, and it's good. So that is the super harder way. We welcome any contributions when it comes to languages. In fact, if I go back to the site, you'll see that there are some languages that we do not have all the way, and that's okay. What we want is, if you have a way to localize it, you want to translate it, you let us know. Send us the regex files, and we're happy. Heck, even send me a Word document on what each of them should be, and we'll spend the time to localize it properly. Okay. So that's the hard way. Now, if you want to look at these things, you can go download it, and you can see them all. These are the DLLs that actually have the satellite assemblies already set up. here are the resix files that are set up for the other languages. You're welcome to change them and send it back to us. If you want to do the compilation yourself, you can look at the README that you'll download, and it tells you how to do it down here. I'm not going to do that this time because I would prefer you not have to expend a lot of energy on this as our clients. Just send us even a Word doc on the word-to-word changes that we have in the localized versions. Okay, Amanda, any questions?
No questions so far, though we do have a comment from Marcin. Woohoo, Polish fully translated, awesome.
Oh, what's that? I know.
He says Polish fully translated is awesome.
Yes, sir. Now, this is what I want you to do, Marcin. I want you to download this, drop it in your bin directory, make sure your UI thread is running in Polish, and the magic that will happen, seriously, you'll wet yourself. Make sure you have a towel. I'm really excited for you. So I made Amanda laugh. That's good. All right. So I'm going to put this back. And now, if there's no other questions, I think I finished right at the half-hour mark. One of the questions, I'm going to do this live because I haven't done this before. One of the questions that often comes up is, Seth, I have a date on my report, but the way dates work, for example, in French and in Spanish is different, right? In Europe, they put the day first, then the month. Although that makes a lot of sense, I don't know why we don't do that here, right? I'm going to show you how to make sure that it's localized properly for yours. So, again, if I make mistakes, it's all good, right? Everyone's friends here, I think. So I'm going to go back to this report, and I'm going to show you the report that we built. There is a special date right here, right? Notice that this is clearly in the Americanized version, right? Notice the thread is running in the French version, so this is what I'm going to do, okay? I'm going to be sneaky. I'm going to go to the higher date. And the question arises all the time, hey, Seth, can you do X in reports? The answer is almost always, why, yes, you can. Let me show you how, right? One of the benefits of using our reporting package is it's so versatile, you can do all sorts of crazy things if you want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the magic event that lets you do anything you dang well please with any element on our page, and that's the before print event. So I'm going to hit before print, and I'm going to go here, and I'm going to say, okay, I want this date, right, to be localized, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead, and I'm just going to do sender as XR label, and I'm going to say dot text, and I'm just going to get the current date and time, right? Then I'm going to go through and actually get the real date that the database is sending. So I'm going to do datetime dot now dot to string, right? So that's not going to do anything, but there is a magic thing you can do with strings in the toString element that takes a format, right? And the format is based upon the current UI thread's culture, right? Is it not? So let me go ahead and hit this, and let me show you how to get the current culture. So I'm going to say thread, and I'm going to get the, oh, I don't know why it said thread. So I'm going to use the, is it running? Okay, so I'm going to say thread. So system dot threading dot thread dot, and here is the interesting thing, current thread dot current UI culture. So I have access to that. In that object, look what I have already built in. And this is .NET being kind to us, right? Notice that the current UI culture also has the current format, right? So I'm going to go ahead and get out of that and say date time format dot, and we're going to do, I don't know, full date time pattern. So I'm going to hit that. Notice that's kind of long, so I'm going to say var x equals, and I'm going to try to shorten this a little bit by removing the type qualifier. So this is why people don't use this, right? This is not us. This is the .NET framework, so nobody come yelling at me that that's kind of long. But that's where I get it from, right? And I'm just going to say here, let's make sure the object type is right. Notice it's a string, which is what we want, and I'm going to hit, I'm going to say x. Okay? And I'm going to run it. Let me go back to the main and make sure that I'm actually showing the report. So I'm going to say show preview dialog and hit F5. That's what I do. Notice, oh wow, it's in English. I'm gonna have to make sure. Let me go through and step through that, make sure it's working. So I'm gonna hit do. Hit the localizer, F10. Hit the F11. Step through. Make sure we get to here. F5. And let's look at the current UI thread. Make sure that it's getting us the right thing. Right? Notice for some reason it's in English, so let me change that. Let me go back to the program, make sure that it's set up. Looks like it is set up that way, but for some reason it's not coming through. So let me hit do. There's the localizer. Let me hit F5 to go to the next place. And notice that this particular one, for some reason, is not coming back the way we want it to. Now, I will tell, oh, there it is, current culture, French, right? Let me do short date, because I think the short date pattern is the one that I want to show you. So short date pattern, maybe they in France, they do it the same way. So F5, let me hit do, let me hit F5. The short date pattern, yeah, there you go. You see that right here? Oh, it just disappeared, sorry. So notice the short date pattern here is in day, month, year, right? So when I hit F5, it should load it up in the day, month, year. There you go. Looks like the long date pattern was the same in French as it was in English. Notice now that we have this date coming through day, month, year, right? And that's for us that are watching this, you know, that are used to the other style, you know, month, day, year, it looks kind of weird, but in France, this is the way the date would actually look. Okay, Amanda, any questions that have come through? By the way.
Yes, maybe you mentioned it at first. Yes.
Go ahead, Amanda.
Oh, where can we get the resource files for different languages for your controls? They missed that part.
What a good question. I will show you right now. And I'm going to do it from scratch. So I'm going to close this down. So you it is closed down. Look at that, it works. So go to documentation.devexpress.com. Now when it comes to reports, just go over to reports, and there at the bottom you're going to see something that says localization, right? Hit this, localization. And then it's going to say something about creating satellite reach assemblies. That is what we want. You click that. And right here, it's going to say the collection of localized assemblies. You click that. And there they are. Right there. Any other questions, Amanda?
No questions.
Do you guys have any questions here on the floor about reports and general localizing? We good? Looks like we're good, Amanda. Apparently I'm doing a really good job.
You're doing a very good job.
People here are just like smiling. I think they're overjoyed. Some guy's walking away right now. I think I offended him. By the way, for those that are here on the floor, we are doing a live webinar broadcasting to all of our clients. Amanda is in LA right now, and we are here in Orlando. So that's why her voice seems a little bit more sunny, because it is sunny over there, right, Amanda?
Oh, yeah, it's beautiful today.
There you go. Don't rub it in. Thanks, jerk. Okay. Kind of. All right. So the next thing we want to do is, because notice I did date time. Now I don't even remember how to do this. So I'm going to go and hit play. And I'm going to show you how to live get data out. So because we want to have the real hire date, right? So when I pause right here, what I want to do is I want to get the current data row. So I'm going to say var y equals, I think it's get, there it is, get current row. Let's see, does it take any parameters? No. So if I were to get the current row and hit F10, notice that in the current row we're going to have a data row view. Let's see, is there anything in there? There it is. It's an item array. And the item that we want is the hire date, right? So that's what? Space number 6. Well, maybe I can be even smarter and do something like this. Why can I do this? Hire date. As date time. And let me say var d. All right, let's see if this works. Uh-oh. Cannot apply. Okay, so this needs to be a data row. So I'm going to say a data row. And hit F5. So I'm going to have to stop it because it's out of context now. and I have to use system.data, so let me start again. Now, the reason why, oh, looks like it doesn't like that either, so I'm going to say y dot. I'm just going to get an item array because I'm lazy right now, so sorry, everybody. F5. Uh-oh, doesn't like that. The operator must use the reference. I have no. Okay, so I'm gonna go like this, and then I'm gonna break point on it to see if I can show it. So I'm gonna hit play, and I'm gonna hit do. Now the reason why I'm kind of fumbling through this is because with our reporting system we allow you to get any data source, right? And so right now I think I'm using a data row, but if you're not, notice the way that I'm doing it is I'm stepping through things to get things to be the way I want them to. So notice that this is indeed, uh-oh, that's why it's not working. So let me hit stop, and let me get the current row, and let's see if I can't find out what kind of object it is that I'm getting data from. So hit F5. Oh, well, now it's not going to like that. So pause that, hit F5, hit do. I'm going to go here, and I'm going to go here. Let's see what's the data type. It's an object data type. Notice that when I click and do a quick watch, it turns out that it's a data row view, right? So what I'm going to do now is I am going to F5 again. And I'm going to cast this to a data row view, right? Now when I say y dot, notice that I have some interesting things. Notice that I can do the data row view indexing that I wanted to do before, and what I wanted to do was higher date, which I think was the actual value that we want. Var d equals that. So I'm going to hit F10, F10, F10. Notice that this is indeed a, well, let's make sure, what kind of object does it think it is? So let's go over here, F10. I bet this is thinking it's an object. So I'm going to say,
oh, you know what? He's part of this.
As date time. All right, and let's see if it likes that. Uh-oh. Let me just cast it as a date time because it's a struct kind of thing. So move it over, hit F10, F10. There you go. There's the date. So let me hit stop. So we were able to get the date out. So now instead of using datetime.now, we're going to use the actual report date. Hit F5, and I think we should be good to go. So I'll take the breakpoint off, and I'll hit do. Now, what you've seen me do is literally how I go through my development process, right? Sometimes we just don't know what properties we have available to us. Literally, when you're debugging and breaking and you want to actually see what you really have, setting a breakpoint, pausing, and looking at what your objects are is probably the best way to do it. I thought I would do this today. I didn't know if I would have time, but notice that even not knowing how to do it completely, I was still able to get there in a reasonable amount of time. Notice now that the days, their higher dates, are coming through in the French localized way. Okay? All right, Amanda, any questions?
No questions thus far. Well, hold on. No, that's it.
Okay, nothing. All right, so I have nothing else to present. If there's anything that anybody has questions on, I'm happy to entertain those. But what I've done is I've gone through a couple of things. Let me summarize. And I'll bring up my slides here to summarize. Oh, good. I have one more thing to talk about. Okay. So the easy way to localize, remember we talked about, was simply dropping the localized satellite assemblies into the right folder. Remember, the folder structure looks something like this, where you had, where you have your app, right? Your app directory. There's your exe, and you drop into localized folders, whether it be Spanish, French, German, whatever. You can drop them all in there, right? Remember that the thread that's running has a UI culture set. It is the UI culture which will dictate to our controls or tools what language to actually render. So the first guide in troubleshooting is that if you're loading your app up and you have the assemblies in the right place and it's not doing it, it's probably because the system is set to run in English, right? You can change that by doing that little bit of code that I showed you when the program started. So let me go down right here where I set the current UI culture to French. Okay. So that's the first thing, right? Make sure that the thread is running in the right context. The second, I guess the first thing really should be make sure the assemblies are in the right directory. If they're not in the right directory, it will not work. Okay, so that's the important thing. All right, so let's go back to the slide and remind us of where else we went. Okay, the next thing we did is we created a custom localizer. Say, for example, your particular report is only going to be in one language, and it turns out that you don't like some of the words that we've translated over to your language. What you can do is you can use a custom localizer. To remind you, what I did is I said report localizer active is this new report localizer. Remember, there is this override method that we set up called getLocalizeString. We have this enum that has what we want to change. Notice I changed one thing and returned localizer getLocalizeString. Now, you might be wondering, well, Seth, why are you doing this? It turns out that our default localizer, if you were to call base, is English, right? So what we do instead is we create a new localizer and create the default localizer, which always defaults to the current UI thread, right? And so when we pass that in, we're able to say, hey, you know what, just for this, give me this, otherwise give me the regular stuff, right? So again, this is only true when you want to localize it to one language, okay? Next, what we talked about was the super custom way, having to do with modifying our resx files. Remember, we downloaded the bits and the resx files. If you want to create your own language, like say you want to have all of DevExpress controls in Pig Latin, you're welcome to do that. All you need to do, here's where the DLLs live, by the way, the localized ones in the DevExpress DLL folder. And then over here we have, for example, say you're looking at reports and you want to change particular localizations. So let's go to the Spanish version. And let me go to Edit Plus. You can see we have them all here. Feel free to change any of them you want and send it on over to us. We'll recompile the satellite assembly for you because you do need the strong key in order to do that. If you have any questions about doing this, please contact me later on or support. We'll be happy to assist in any way that we can. Now, once you create this, you send it over. Honestly, you don't even have to do it in the resx file. Send us a Word doc of some words that you'd like to change, and we're happy to do that as well. Finally, how to fix problems. I honestly experienced no problems with localizing. It just worked. I dropped stuff in, and things were happy and good to go. Okay, so how to fix problems. Again, first rule: make sure it's in the right place. Second rule, make sure your UI culture is set to the right thing. Third rule, and this I didn't say, it might be that you're in a language that not all of the strings were localized properly. Well, feel free to submit some changes, and we're happy to do that. All right, Amanda, any questions or comments?
Nope. You've answered everything, I guess.
Well, wasn't that lovely?
Very thorough. It was lovely.
Yeah, I know. You know what I'm saying? So, okay. Now, as a final word, I did spend a little bit more than I said I was. A final word, if you have any questions, make sure you get a hold of me. My name is Seth Juarez. I am the technical evangelist for DevExpress over data visualization, specifically in the realm of reporting. There is my Twitter handle, and there is my email address. If you have any questions, feel free to ping me. I am happy to help. In fact, more often than not, it's always a case of, hey, can you do this in reports? The answer is almost always yes. With just a little bit of code and some ingenuity, we can get anything done with our reporting suite. All right, Amanda, back to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Seth. Seth's next webinar is April 15th, Reporting with WPF and MVVM. This session will demonstrate using reporting tools within WPF while adhering to the industry standard model view model pattern. That's Seth's next webinar, next April 15th. We have more webinars coming your way this week. Tomorrow at 10 a.m., DevExpress welcomes back Oliver Sturm with a complete tour of DevExpress ORM, Express Persistent Objects, XPO. And Friday, XAF goodness, XAF evangelist Gary Short presents Functional Testing Deep Dive. Everything that can be measured can be improved, and XAF is no exception. In this webinar, he'll show you how to use the inbuilt testing framework that ships with XAF to ensure your products are as good as they can be. So visit devexpress.com/webinars to register away. And again, if you missed anything from this webinar, or you want to review any previous webinars or check out hundreds of product tutorials, visit us on the DevExpress channel at tv.devexpress.com. Again, thanks, Seth. Have fun. This is your last day in Orlando, correct? Are you still there?
Yes, it is. My last day in Orlando. It's really sad because the weather has been so beautiful with all of this rain. And last night I stayed up late, chatted with some dolphins. We had a really good time. It turns out dolphins are more complicated creatures than you would originally think.
Can you do a dolphin call?
Sure. Let's have Jeff do it. Jeff, come on over here and let's get a dolphin. Go ahead, Jeff. So that sounded like a chicken, Amanda. I'm not sure he's got his animals right. We might have to take him to a zoo. Is there one in LA? We'll need to take him down and sort of show him what a chicken is and what a dolphin
is.
Yeah, it's a different thing.
Oh, that was amazing. All right, so thank you all in Orlando. Thank you all for joining us, and thanks for choosing DevExpress.
Take care.